What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of HR Heretics. Today we have Danielle Mathis from Clari. What's up, Danielle? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay, so we met at the Sapphire event, and you told me the craziest story that I think I've heard this year, and I've heard a lot of crazy shit this year. So there's a soundbite right now in tech around these fake candidates, right? Like these deepfake candidates. There's a whole lot of theories about what's going on there. But the other thing that I think many of us have started to feel in other aspects is like deep fake companies. And this happened at Clary. So Danielle, can you tell us the story about what happened and how you guys are solving this problem?
Sure. So again, cautionary tale about malicious actors, right? It's not fun that we're all kind of navigating this, but we're navigating it together. And I definitely didn't expect this on an idle Tuesday morning, going to the airport, heading on an international flight for work. But that's such is life. And I started to get these pings from a few folks internally. They were middle management, and they said, "Danielle, I got this note that someone thinks they're joining my team tomorrow, but I'm not hiring." And I said, "Okay, could you send that over to me? Just send me everything you've got." So they were sending screenshots and emails, and what had happened was so it started off with 2 individuals. It grew, is what you will learn. But 2 individuals had said, "Hey, I think I'm starting tomorrow with you. I haven't received my computer yet, and I just didn't know what time I should be at the office." And so I went into nothing gets past me. So what's happening here mode. And I realized that they had definitely been conned in some way. I was trying to figure out what the con was, so to speak. And what I had figured out was that there was somebody out there playing the part of being a Clary recruiter and recruiting them into our organization. And they had been through a little bit of a process, which I came to find out later, end to end, and that they had actually received an offer from us, letterhead, signature from somebody who our department, and they thought they were very much starting with us the subsequent day.
Wow. Okay, so so these people so you said it then grew. So like walk me through, you get pinged from middle managers, you start diving in and you're like, "Oh shit. Someone has been acting on our behalf that is not us, purporting to be us, telling potential candidates, like running them through a recruiting cycle, presumably,
Oh, yeah.
extending an offer, telling them they're going to join, and then they're reaching out to you being like, hey, like, what's going on here? Like, things feel a little bit disorganized. So then, like, what are you doing there? What's going on?
Yeah, it was a good question. My first reaction was, "Okay, how big is this?" So I went and just checked my LinkedIn, which then I found 2 more people who had reached out. And then I went and actually had gotten a ping from one of my recruiters, so in Slack, had found out 2 more people. So at this point, we had like a total of 6 or 8 people. Over the course, and this is over probably a 48-hour course. In that time, my first reaction was I need to get in touch with legal to just find out like, "Hey, have you heard of this before?" I hadn't necessarily heard of it before. I mean, I had heard of it, but I had never experienced it, I guess. So, I actually wanted to reach out to the individuals to find out, like, more and see if I could find a through line in who was behind said operation, and I did start to see a pattern. I had got some contact information, some screenshots. Everybody was so great. My first thought was I wanted to help these individuals because they were obviously in a very vulnerable place. They were earlier in career. So to them, what would seem abnormal to me about a recruiting process wouldn't necessarily feel abnormal to them. Hey, you're an incoming designer, you're new in career. Let me see your portfolio. Oh, your portfolio looks so great. I'm going to send this over to the hiring manager. Yep, they said this looks great and they'd love to have you do X exercise. They do the exercise, they get it back. So there's an interaction there. They hadn't necessarily met face to face. Those kinds of pieces were obviously missing, but they didn't pick up on it. So I felt really bad for these folks. And I wanted to protect the brands too, and I didn't wanna just throw up my hands and go, not my or here, legal, go deal." I wanted to really, like, get in there, and so I jumped on the call with all of them. I talked to each one of them. I wanted to get a recanting of what happened just because I figured that was gonna help in any scenario, and it did. And I kinda said, like, "Hold on, sit tight." I mean, some of these people had quit their jobs. Some of them were just starting out and they thought this was their first job. So, it was just it was yucky all the way around for them, for me, for Clary, for the world, like, you're kind of going like, "Oh, man," you know?
Yeah, this is the state of affairs. Like, this is not what we have to deal with. Okay. How many people were impacted?
There were 12 in total.
12?
12 in total, yeah.
Okay. So, wow, there's actually a lot to get into. 'Cause so 12 people, you talk to all of them, you start to find this through line, right? Tell me about how you handled these people who were impacted. Then tell me how you think about like why did they do this? And then also like mitigation. Like, because it's clearly like there's a problem here. People are representing you. How are you thinking about this stuff?
Yeah, so the first thing I did when I talked to them was got a recanting. I told them all kind of hang tight. And this actually came in 2 different waves. So the first wave was 8, and then there was an additional 4 subsequent. So I kind of had a playbook at that point on what I was gonna go and run and do, and so it made the time a lot faster. But the first time around, after talking to them, I immediately thought to myself, "Okay, so did we," I was trying to give them a little bit of a lesson in that, "Hey, so if you're not interacting with somebody who, for example, has an @Clary email, that could probably be fraudulent, right? And you're early in career, so you don't necessarily know, but you're always going to have, by and large, a face this is before we were, AI was where AI is now. But I said, you're always gonna have a conversation with a person generally at some point in the interview process, and was kind of using that, but I was also tempering that with like, hey, they're in a really, terrible mindset. They just got told like, hey, actually, you don't have a job tomorrow. And then I also started to think about, hey, could we capitalize on this in some way? Like, let me look at their backgrounds. Like, maybe we have a role for them. There were actually 2 engineers earlier in career, and we happen to have some early in career roles open at that time. So I said immediately, hey, I'm going to send this to my team. I'm going to get you on the phone with somebody. Let's go ahead and see how that goes. Right. And we actually ended up hiring one of them.
That's wild. Wow. So the fraudsters are actually pretty good recruiters, it turns out.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Cy. You know, it's his name. Yeah.
Okay. So one gets hired, and then what are you doing with these 11 other people?
Yeah, it was tricky. What I did do was, because I obviously have a fabulous relationship with a lot of agencies, was I put them in touch with some agencies that were helpful for earlier in career. And some of them I just said, "Hey, look, if there's any way that my team can help you with your resume or give you some, kind of career coaching and those kinds of things being earlier in career." So that also I think helped put them, at ease.
Okay. So what is the motive? Like, why are people doing this? I don't even understand, like, what would you get from deceiving somebody of this nature? Like, what is a fraudster trying to what information are they gathering? Like, what's the purpose? What do they get out of this?
So it's really interesting. It took me a little while to figure it out. But the reality is they're trying to get people's W-2 information so they can go and sell it or do whatever with it, right? Definitely malice, we know that.
So, like, on a W-2, you have, name, social security number, but, like, not even bank account information, right? Like,
Ooh, but I think dark web, like, who knows what they're doing with that? All I know is that it was clear to me this person was definitely trying to gather sensitive information to be able to profit in some way. I definitely know they were not geographically here in the United States, so that was tricky too. And when I got on the phone with legal, I was like, "What do we do with this?" Right? And he's like, "We contact the FBI."
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
So I've done that once. We had a crazy situation in which an employee was sending photos of guns to other employees, and this was Memorial Day weekend. I'll never forget. Like like Friday, Memorial Day weekend, like I sit down on my couch, like, oh, like finally, like 3 days, I'm just gonna like chill, like go get some sun. And I get this picture, which is like, and by the way, with the guns, it said blood everywhere, which is like definitely not like how you think about an employee Slack message about to arrive. So I called the FBI. And for people who haven't called the FBI, my learning was it's like a hotline,
Yes.
right? And so it literally said I don't remember exactly the words, but it was something along the lines of like, for mass shootings, press 1. For weapons of mass destruction, press 2. And I was like, what the fuck is happening right now? Was that your experience too?
Yeah. I was on with our chief legal officer and I was like, "Okay, is this how this always goes?" Because I just couldn't believe it, you know? It's like
Did they call you back?
they did. They started with him. They gathered the information. I had provided anything that the case officer needed. We did send a cease and desist to the information that we had on file. It seemed to definitely, like, lessen what had happened because and I don't know that there was a response, but after whatever investigation they did, they found him and they took care of that, which was great, and we didn't receive anybody else in that tranche of yeah, of malice. The other one was text message based.
Okay.
So, it was 4 individuals earlier in career, again, right? Super vulnerable population. They're used to a different way of interacting, so it didn't feel as out of, the norm to them. So it didn't feel out of the norm to them to get a interaction like that, a text message about a potential job and an opportunity. Again, this is a Clary recruiter, very much not a Clary recruiter. And so they didn't get to the point of actually receiving an offer, which was great. Those 4 people reached out to us saying like, "Hey, I haven't received the offer yet. I'm being told I'm going to receive the offer." And similar story though. One reached out to our LinkedIn account, one reached out to my LinkedIn account, and 2 sent notes to, I believe, people on my recruiting team, 2 of my recruiters. And so I went through the same thing. And there was a through line in a phone number I found through like digging and doing all of the different things. So they handled it in the same way. So then I felt like I was in the twilight zone. Like, is this gonna continue to happen? Like, and I'm putting it in different forums I'm in, right? To go like, "Hey guys, are you experiencing this too?" Some were.
Really? So you were the first when we talked about this at the Sapphire event, you were the first person I've ever heard gone through this. Then I leave that event probably 3 weeks later. I'm an LP in a very small LP in a VC fund. And they do capital calls like a couple of times a year. So you just like, kind of wire them information. And somebody had bought a domain, added one letter to the domain, used the exact same email that the finance guy sends. And I was like about to click it. And then I had received an email from the VC firm saying, like, do not click this link. Like, we are aware there's a phishing attempt. And so it just seems like now it is happening more frequently with potentially like higher malicious intent. And, in the era of AI, I think it's going to get even crazier.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors. Your workforce is your organization's greatest strength and often its largest single expense. But without the right tools, understanding where your workforce spend is going or how it impacts your bottom line can be a challenge. That's where Planful comes in. With Planful, HR and finance teams get the clarity they need to make smarter workforce decisions, gain real-time visibility into workforce fluctuations, forecast with confidence, and adjust talent acquisition plans collaboratively based on costs today and into the future. No more guesswork, just data-driven insights to help you plan with accuracy. And the best part, Planful is fast and easy to implement, so you can be up and running in weeks, not months, with minimal IT support. Plus, as your company grows, Planful grows with you, providing endless runway for strategic workforce planning at any scale. Ready to take your workforce planning to the next level? Join over 1,500 organizations already using Planful. Visit planful.com/heretics to learn more.
I must admit, I used to believe that AI didn't actually exist in recruiting or HR. That is until my friend Heather Doche, who leads talent at Signalfire, told me to check out Metaview. I got into the product and was like, wow, AI actually does exist in recruiting, and this product is sick. Metaview is the world's #1 AI scribe built specifically for recruiting. Their AI records and transcribes hiring conversations, like intakes, interviews, and debriefs, then provides perfectly summarized notes of everything that was discussed. I've seen firsthand how tough it can be to extract consistently high-quality data from candidate conversations. I've been in debriefs where interviewers told us about their feelings instead of what actually happened in the interview. And I've seen VPs and CEOs block hires because they didn't learn anything from skeleton scorecards. Metaview changes everything. With perfect notes from every conversation, your people can focus on creating a human connection with candidates, and they can save time on the busy work of cleaning up notes after every interview. But it's so much more than just a time saver, because perfect notes means perfect data. For every candidate and every pipeline, hiring teams can make confident, informed decisions, and talent leaders can finally take control of the interview process. Metaview covers all your compliance needs, works with all your existing tools, and takes less than 3 minutes to set up. Join talent leaders at organizations like Brex, Deal, HelloFresh, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts. Tell them that me and Kelly sent you. Or you could just go to their website and get started for free. You'll be up, running, and AI-enabled in minutes. Okay, so other people are experiencing it. Did you call the FBI again?
Yes. I mean, I immediately was like, "So let's call the hotline number," right? Like, I don't yeah. I think it was a whole different sort of thing they were dealing with. It wasn't the same individual, so to speak. And then we haven't received anything since. So I'm knocking on all the wood that we don't have to go through that again. But I did the same thing, right? I went back, I wanted to make sure that those people were okay and that they, you know, look, do we have anything? Can I put them in touch? I mean, the one individual who was actually there were two individuals in design. I didn't have anything at the time. And but I did put them in touch with our chief designer, right? To go ahead and just get some learnings there. Like, what could I at least help them out? Like, that's just I think about the parents, right, who think their kid's getting their first job and joining this great SaaS company and all of that. Like I put on a lot of different hats in that moment, and I just couldn't help but be like, "How can I help?"
So how do you think about mitigation then moving forward, right? Like, there isn't really a whole lot you can do to defend against this, especially because this is not like your database. It's like one thing if it's like people in your ATS, right? Or former employees, right? We can email all those people and say, hey, be on the lookout for this. But these are malicious actors going to total strangers to Clary, acting like they are Clary, and then deceiving them in such a way to where it's like then they're gathering whatever reason they want the W-2. So what are you doing to defend against it?
It's a good question. So immediately I went to our security, our CISO, right? Like, "Well, what do we do?" And we obviously added a lot of, warning and verbiage to our job descriptions, our careers page. We actually have a whole fraudulent page on the website for folks that feel like if even if they had any questions surrounding the validity of like they need to get in touch with us. So it goes to myself, it goes to our head of legal and our CISO. So that way we all have visibility and can course correct if needed. Thankfully, we haven't had to use it, but it's there.
Wow. And so since that you said you've also experienced other companies that are having similar issues. And then today, right before we jumped on the pod, you said that you had also experienced one of these deepfake candidates that appears to be now everyone's experiencing that.
It's been funny. We Nobody I think not that we couldn't have predicted the AI transformation. It's been moving and then it's kind of here, right? And what do you do with it? And it's all happening so fast. And so we're sitting in these seats, these really pivotal time for all of us in these seats to collectively be navigating the AI transformation. And the deepfake thing, it was probably about a year ago, one of my recruiters called me and was like, "Hey, Danielle, I just experienced something super odd, but I think there was a phone farm call." And I was like, "Let's go on. Let's talk about that." And so it was something that I've had my eye on for quite some time. And and then at first it was only really hitting us here in the US. And then now, I have teams in Poland and in India and the UK, and they're all reporting to me things that they're seeing. And so I said, let me go ahead and I'd love to experience it myself. And so there was a candidate that applied, stereotypical, like couldn't have been a more perfect candidate on paper, John Doe. And so I said, okay, well, I'll take the call. Just throw it on my calendar. And so I got on Zoom this morning and, very much delayed, would not answer questions that I was asking in the way I wanted them asked or answered. Also very robotic like. I mean, it was just a very stereotypical transaction, but it was good for me to sort of see it firsthand as well. And now we're having to put, a lot more in place. And we've been doing that as we've navigated this, this new chapter.
What are you guys putting in place? Because I think about this a lot too. If I was still leading people or recruiting teams, it kind of feels like we don't have a playbook here, right? So everyone's just kind of inventing it as we go along. And, I think these tactics are going to improve dramatically over the course, like I think in the next few months, right? Some of the stuff we're seeing right now is going to be, it's going to look like 1947 TV compared to like what we're going to see in the next couple of months. And so like, are you guys regularly talking about this? Like what things are you doing?
Yep. So we're doing the hand test. If there's anything, if we get on Zoom, first of all cameras on all the time. There's no more good old fashioned phone call.
Wow.
100% has to be on Zoom. I don't care what side of the business. And the recruiters are like, actually, it's so helpful because they're pretty, I have an amazing talent team and they're all vets and they have been able to figure out very early on. There's only one or two here that get through now. At the beginning, right? They were like, "Wow, I'm finding all these really great candidates," but then I get on and I'm realizing they aren't who they say they are, right? Talked a year ago. But now as a candidate comes through, if they're too good to be true, we're cross-referencing LinkedIn, right? Oh, they only have 2 people on their LinkedIn or they don't have, their profile prospect, all of the things, right? And then on Zoom, hand test, we're really transparent about it. "Hey, look, deepfakes are out there."
So it's like deepfakes are out there. Can I like see your hand?
It like this.
Oh, in front of your face. Got it.
Yep, and if they had, like, a funky background, you would be able to tell. You'd be able to see it. So the hand test has been really helpful for us, and, it's an unfortunate truth, but that's where we're at, and it's getting to the point too where I'm seeing a lot of people say, like, "We're not even looking at inbound, we're only looking externally because this is becoming so pervasive," and that's not my philosophy, but I understand why people are taking that approach.
Okay, so I was just going to ask you about how you're thinking about the fake candidate problem now with inbounds. So, I think there's a false narrative out there that the applicant tracking systems have this amazing AI and they can just like surface the best candidates. And in reality, my experience has always been it's kind of like chronological order. We have to sift through to find the needle in the haystack. Already, that's pretty low ROI, but we do it because these people are expressing interest into us. Like, that's awesome. We want that. So, what are you doing? How are you thinking about that? Because there is some value in there if you can find it.
Well, here's the difference to me, and this is what I think people aren't realizing. We're going from content creators to editors, right? Like in a lot of ways. And part of that process is I don't think it's entirely equitable to have anybody be floating anybody the top of anything, right? You should be able to go ahead and really be able to look at a background and know, okay, the time that this person was at Cisco was a really, it was a hyper growth time. So their background is very different than somebody who was at Cisco from a time where they were in an ivory tower role, right? So to speak, as a leader. So my recruiting team is going to be able to look at that with that knowledge because they are SMEs in subject matter experts in their area of the business that they would know that. So therefore they can read a different story. And so for that reason alone, yeah, you go through the inbound. I will tell you about 20% of our candidates, 25 really, are inbound
Of your hires.
of our hires.
Yeah, that's an amazing number.
Yeah, there is a value there. And I just call me a contrarian, but like I'll talk about that all day.
Totally. But like, but I mean, that's a lot of work. Are you guys adding then friction to reduce the amount of workload? So like, I was talking to a company about this the other day. This is like a Series A company. You have not heard of them. Like, I would say nobody who listens to the show has heard of them. And they're getting flooded with inbound. One piece of it is garbage. Another piece of it is fake. And then a very small sliver are candidates they would like to talk to. And the CEO was like, how do I solve this problem? I was like, well, if it were me, if I think about an inbound candidate, right, they're expressing interest in us. And so in that world, we have a right to potentially ask for something before we jump on the phone with them. So like, write a 500-word email about that tells me about you and why you want to work here, right? Something like very easy that's not going to be too burdensome, but that like makes somebody clear an extra hurdle that isn't just total bullshit. So what are you guys doing there?
It's a good question. On the engineering side, we are doing a lot of that. That's, kind of a checkbox for us that's worked very, very well. On our GTM side, one thing we've really done is okay, so for example, we get a lot obviously from LinkedIn. We have a ton of questions they have to answer. Like if you're not wanting to sit there and answer the questions and you think it's just like, "Oh, do I apply to the have I worked for in sales for 5 years?" Yeah, and that's it and you're going to pass. Nope. So we've done a lot of that. The other thing that's been really amazing is we use CoderPad for our testing tool, and I just am a huge fan, and call me a fangirl, but I will say that they have a lot of new amazing tools that have been helpful for us on the AI front, both to be able to navigate what good looks like, right? So we are right now actually revamping our whole interview panels and everything for our engineering side to really make sure that what we're doing is showing that we too are, we're actually adopting this and using this, not let's hear of it and look at it as a tool that tells us if you're cheating or not, right? But we're doing some of those things early on in the process so it weeds everything out earlier.
Yep, I think it's the only solve. Like it's crazy. And I do think I've evolved my thinking on this 7, 8 months ago. I was like, oh, whatever, like, the hand test, like there's stuff like that. Like we'll get over it. You get on Zooms, but just given the sophistication and what's going on, I feel like we're entering this era to where we probably do need more software tools to help ultimately solve these problems, which is so obnoxious and annoying that this is where we are in the world today.
Nolan, I'm calling it job security, you know?
That's a good point. Yeah, especially in the era of AI. I love it. Danielle, where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I am always dmathis at clari.com if you're ever trying to get in touch.
Sick. Thanks so much for the time. Appreciate you.
I'm too soon.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.